Well, thank you very much indeed, and it's a great pleasure to be here in Moldova. As your introductor said, I spent 15 years in the European Parliament, and in all that time I think I visited every European country, but never got the chance to come to Moldova, so it's a great pleasure to be here, and I'm particularly grateful that the border guards actually managed to let me into the country, which so many other colleagues didn't seem to do. But it's also a great pleasure to see so many friends and colleagues from the British Parliament and from the ECR group in the European Parliament. One of my happiest political times, possibly even better than being a Brexit minister in the UK, was helping to found the ECR group in the European Parliament, and it was a great honour to serve as chairman of it for a few years. I've been asked to speak to you today on the vitally important matter of the ongoing war in Ukraine, a conflict that has truly shaken Europe and the world. Here in Moldova, of course, you are very much on the front line of Russian aggression, and you see the very real consequences of that in Transnistria. My party, the UK Conservative Party, stands firmly and resolutely in support of Ukraine's sovereignty and its right to self-determination, a fundamental conservative value. Russia's illegal and brutal invasion is not only a gross violation of international law, it's a direct assault on the very principles of liberty, democracy, and national sovereignty that we as a conservative movement hold dear. The American diplomat George Kennan famously warned of Soviet expansionism and observed that the Soviet Union was impervious to the logic of reason, but highly sensitive to the logic of force. This simple truth remains as relevant today as it was back then, and we must all redouble our efforts to help Ukraine to defend itself with ever more cash and more powerful weapons. One of the single most important things that my party did during our time in government was to side unequivocally with Ukraine. Under our Conservative Prime Ministers, Boris Johnson and then Rishi Sunak, the UK were often the first mover on vital military aid and subsequently and frequently pushed our allies to go further. We were at the vanguard of the sanctions response, we delivered vital humanitarian support, and we were constantly looking at new ways for constraining Putin's war machine. Now, in that spirit, whilst of course there is much that I disagree with from our new socialist government in the UK, one thing that they are getting right is continuing to offer unwavering support to Ukraine, both in terms of military aid, humanitarian assistance, and money to the tune of about £3 billion per year. And it's imperative that we recognise the tremendous resilience and the courage of the ordinary Ukrainian people. Their resistance in the face of Russian aggression has been nothing short of heroic. President Zelensky and his government, the people of Ukraine, have demonstrated remarkable leadership in the most harrowing of circumstances. They are defending, in my view, not only their nation, but the very future of Europe itself. I'm very proud that my country, alongside, of course, other countries such as Poland, Italy, and the United States, and many others, have played such an important role in this defence. Through the provision of cutting-edge military equipment, including tanks, artillery, and air defence systems, we have helped Ukraine to withstand and in some cases to repel Russian forces. But we have to be vigilant and we have to be proactive. We know, of course, that the war is far from over, and we know that Ukraine is going through a particularly difficult period at the moment. But as the situation evolves, so must our support. President Trump in the US is now discovering how hard it is to negotiate an enduring political settlement, because, as we of course all know, you cannot believe a word that Putin says, and you certainly cannot trust any treaty that he signs. Beyond military support, we must not forget the humanitarian aspect of this conflict. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced, their homes destroyed, their futures uncertain. All of us in Europe have a moral duty to continue offering refuge to those fleeing the horrors of war and to support reconstruction efforts in Ukraine once peace is finally achieved. This will require not just government action, but collaboration with international organizations, with NGOs, and of course, crucially, the private sector. Many countries in this region, and it's worth mentioning Poland in particular, and Romania, have helped with establishing and helping Ukrainian refugees. In the UK, we established the Homes for Ukrainians scheme, helping thousands of displaced Ukrainians to seek sanctuary. Let me touch briefly on a point that is often overlooked in this debate, and that is the strategic importance of energy security. And of course, in Moldova, you know that only too well. Russia has long used its vast energy resources as a weapon of coercion, and the war in Ukraine has underscored the urgent need for Europe to finally wean itself off Russian oil and gas. It is vital that we rapidly diversify our energy supplies by working with the US, working with other partners around the world to finally cease buying all Russian oil and gas, either directly or indirectly. And we should use the power of Western banks, Western markets, to sanction third-party countries who supply blood money to Putin's regime by helping him to evade those sanctions. We can also do this by increasing our investments in other energy sources, in nuclear energy and in renewables, all of which will help to finally end the scourge of Russian oil and gas, as well, of course, as depriving Putin of vital resources that he uses to prosecute the war. So whilst in conclusion, we must remain resolute in our support for Ukraine, we must also be clear-eyed about the path forward. There is, sadly, going to be no quick or easy resolution to this conflict. Any lasting peace must be based on justice. It must be based on the full restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity, and finally guarantees that Russia will not be able to repeat such aggression in the future, either to Ukraine or other European countries. Let us be under no illusion. This war is not just about Ukraine. It is about defending the principles that have underpinned peace and stability in Europe since the end of the Second World War. It is about ensuring that might does not make right, and that the sovereignty of nations, no matter what their size, is respected by all. However difficult it is in our own domestic economies, I want us all to remain resolute in our support for Ukraine. We must stand firm in our defence of freedom, and we must remain committed to ensuring that Ukraine prevails in this struggle. Because in doing so, we are not only defending Ukraine, we are defending security and the future of the entire free and democratic world. Thank you very much.